All right, welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're going on a trip. We are embarking on a fascinating chronological journey following the absolutely incredible mission profile of the Space Shuttle Discovery. We're going to break down exactly what it takes to conduct delicate science in microgravity, rendezvous with the space station, and survive the fiery return to Earth.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our flight plan for today. Orbit and early science, rendezvous with Mir, deploying the Spartan satellite, the fiery atmospheric reentry, and finally touchdown and teamwork. Let's go.
All right, part one, orbit and early science.
So once the shuttle actually gets into orbit, the whole vibe changes. It becomes this place of really quiet, methodical focus, dedicated entirely to delicate microgravity research. To get a sense of just how precise this orbital science is, let's look at one highly specific protein crystal growth experiment. Take step one. They are literally dissolving protein crystals in these tiny solution vials. Then, step two, they meticulously arrange those vials onto trays and stick them into a vapor diffusion apparatus. And finally, step three, the astronauts pull the trays into a little chamber to process them. It's wild when you think about it. This is highly delicate, highly controlled precision work happening while they're just floating, completely isolated from the pull of Earth's gravity.
Moving right along to part two, rendezvous with Mir.
Okay, so we're shifting gears from quiet lab work to some seriously high-stakes orbital choreography. Because, pulling up to a massive structure in the vacuum of space is definitely not like pulling into your driveway. First up, the shuttle gets the green light to fly underneath Mir, moving just a bit faster. Then they have to climb up in front to match altitude and slow down to match speeds. Finally, astronaut Jim basically hits the brakes. He arrests the approach, and they hold steady, station keeping at exactly 400 feet for a few minutes. That gives them their perfectly timed window to make the final approach. Now, to actually pull that timeline off safely, the crew relies on some highly specialized tracking tech. Out in the payload bay, they've got the trajectory control system. This is the main laser that bounces off the white surfaces to figure out the exact distance. But inside the cabin, it's a lot more hands-on. The crew literally uses a handheld laser. It works exactly like a traffic cop's radar gun. But here's the crazy part. They actually had a tough time finding reflective items on Mir to get a solid range reading. Because of that little bit of uncertainty, they had to play it safe and hold their position a bit further out than they initially planned.
Which kind of brings us to the historical backdrop of all this. On one hand, you've got the US space program, obviously incredibly proud of their achievements. And on the other hand, the Russian space program, who are equally proud of theirs. And hey, they'd been operating the Mir station since 1986. But the really beautiful thing emphasized here is that in this moment, it wasn't about competition at all. It was literally the time to join forces and bring both of these proud programs together. And you really see the human side of that massive geopolitical collaboration right here. Imagine this. The shuttle is holding its position, and the crews look out, and they can actually see each other. Waving right through the glass of the Mir space station were Elena Kendova, Valery Polyakov, Commander Alexander Chenena, and Vladimir Polypian. I mean, wow, what a stunning visual of international crews just making a direct human connection, looking at each other across the literal void of space.
And this brilliantly illustrates the emotional weight of that exact moment. When you're staring at a vehicle like Mir that's been up there since 1986, and you see the faces of your international colleagues smiling back at you, it perfectly evokes what this quote captures. It is just stunning, just breathtaking, and really tells us that we're doing the right thing. Just incredible.
All right, part three, deploying the Spartan satellite.
So, after the huge success of the Mir rendezvous, the crew moves on to their second major task of the flight. Let's break down exactly what the Spartan is. Basically, it's this gold box that features an ultraviolet telescope right on its side. On flight day 2, Vladimir Chakota took the controls of the robot arm, lifted the Spartan up above the shuttle's nose, and actually pointed it back to observe the ultraviolet glow on the shuttle's tail while the jets were firing. Fast forward to flight day 5, Tito uses the arm again, but this time he completely releases the Spartan so it can track stellar objects out in deep space. And of course, right after they let it go, the crew watched it like a hawk to make absolutely sure its attitude control system was working perfectly. So the crucial point here is that being up in this orbital position gives you a perspective that is completely alien to us down here on Earth. Just picture this. You're looking out the window, Mir is right there in the center of your frame, and suddenly you see a meteorite streak by. But here's the kicker. Because of how high up they were, the shuttle crew had the totally surreal experience of watching meteorites fly below their spaceship.
Okay, moving on to part 4,
the fiery atmospheric re-entry. What goes up must come down, right? And if you think launching into space or docking with Mir is intense, the physics of returning to Earth are absolutely violent. Think about the millions of pounds of thrust required to get the space shuttle into orbit in the first place. When it's time to come home, how on earth do you take out all that massive built-up kinetic energy that was packed into the vehicle at liftoff?
Well, the answer is incredibly blunt. You just slam it into the atmosphere. Way up high, there aren't a ton of molecules, but the ones that are there, they get screaming hot as the shuttle plows right through them. This extreme friction creates this incredibly vibrant pink glow right outside the windows, and the whole scene is constantly lit up by the bright flashes of the attitude control jets firing off, working overtime to keep the nose pointed exactly where it needs to be.
To really visualize just how much energy is being bled off here, I want you to consider this number, 25. As the shuttle comes tearing into the atmosphere, it literally drags a massive 25-mile trailing fire behind it. And for this specific mission, it was a night entry. Because they were making this huge turning circle, the sun only briefly peeked its little head above the horizon before dipping back down, making that 25-mile tail of fire look absolutely dramatic against the pitch-black sky.
Now, navigating that intense descent means managing a very specific aerodynamic property. The shuttle has a lift-to-drag ratio of worse than 4-to-1. What does that mean? It basically means the shuttle is dropping incredibly steeply. It's essentially flying like a brick with wings. So to handle that, the onboard computers have to execute reverse flight path control. It makes for a pretty bumpy ride, causing noticeable turbulence inside the cabin, but the automated systems handle all those wild gusts very, very smoothly. And finally, Part 5, Touchdown and Teamwork.
So, after bleeding off all that orbital velocity and basically surfing the atmosphere down to the lower altitudes, the mission reaches its final phase, and the sheer mechanical precision required in these last few seconds is fascinating. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that even though they were landing in the early morning darkness, they had 20 million candle-power xenon lamps lighting up the runway. For the approaching crew, it looked as bright as daytime. As the shuttle flies right over the threshold, trailing edge vortices violently roll off the wingtips. The moment they touch down, astronaut Ellen deploys the drag chute. And crucially, they execute a disreefing maneuver just before the nose wheel touches down, which is a fancy way of saying they adjust the chute to significantly reduce the physical loading on the main wheels in the nose gear.
Of course, pulling off a safe return is the ultimate testament to the people behind the machines. The source leaves us with this really wonderful reflection from the crew about working alongside colleagues like Nick, Stephanie, and Alex. They said, "They have shown so much technical excellence, they are also deeply kind and incredible teammates, which has just made this a dream assignment for me." Honestly, that perfectly encapsulates it. Human connection and kindness are just as absolutely vital to a mission's success as the engineering itself. Which leaves us with this final thought. We've seen what happens when brilliant minds unite to build delicate protein crystals, carefully dock massive structures using a traffic cop radar, and safely fly a 25-mile trail of fire back down to Earth. So, when international forces can join together to conquer the screaming heat of re-entry and the vacuum of space, what impossible frontier will we collaborate on next? Thank you so much for exploring this remarkable journey with me today. Keep asking questions, and I'll see you on the next explainer.